Hello, this is Igor Stenmark at MGI Research, and we're here at Monetize Forum 2021 online. And our next session deals with taming high complexity in quote to cash, really dealing with high complexity monetization scenarios. And to deal with this topic, we have a special guest today. We invited Mr. Adam Breakey of Conga to join us here and share with us some expertise and some knowledge, some deep knowledge that Conga has accumulated over years in helping numerous companies address this issue. So Adam heads up product marketing, CPQ product marketing and AI at Conga. And he, as I mentioned, he's worked with numerous companies in this area, helping them deal with highly complex sets of requirements. He has also a deep background and deep expertise in product management, product marketing. He's been, aside from Conga and Aptus, he's been at companies such as Progress Software and Lenovo prior to that. So Adam, first of all, thank you very much for joining us here today. Really appreciate your time. Before we jump into kind of a meat of our topic, could you maybe give us a bit of background on Conga? I'm sure there are many of our members of our audience know Aptus and know Conga in different roles, and you guys have a pretty broad portfolio and deep range of products in quote to cash. But really talk about the combined company and how you position your overall solution right now.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Igor, for inviting me here. I'm excited to talk about this topic. So when we talk about Conga, so just this past summer, Aptus and Conga, two separate companies, became one and really set us up to be the leader in what we call digital transformation for business processes. I know it's a lot of fluffy words, but the idea here is that we help our customers achieve peak performance, whether that's increasing revenue or managing their key relationships with their customers, or even overcoming complexity. We do that all with our comprehensive solution or suite of products that we've built around this commercial operations. Some of those products will be, that we've talked about. Our key flagship products are Configure Price Quote, CPQ, and then Contract Lifecycle Management, CLM. And then we've also got revenue management and digital commerce and e-signature and other products that fill out that whole commercial operations suite.
How would you define high complexity? What is the kind of framing around it, and how would the company know that we are a high complexity case? They could be diving in and saying, "Oh, we want to go and re-implement billing, re-implement CPQ, transform our quote to cash," all along not realizing that we're dealing with a very high complexity environment, and special care must be exercised.
Absolutely, great question. And so we think about complexity here at Conga, and specifically around our CPQ product. We think of about three different ways that contribute to the complexity. The first being just the sheer number of items that the business sells. How many SKUs do you have on the shelf? Are you selling tens or maybe 100 different products? That's a pretty low complex requirement. Are you selling thousands or tens of thousands or even millions of products? Obviously, the complexity grows as you add products. But that's just one factor. Volume is one thing. The second thing we look at is how complex might those items be to configure? So when you think about a basic configuration, it might be I sell this widget off the shelf, it has no configuration, and you buy it and you ship it out, such as a book would fall into that category. The other end of the spectrum, the highly complex, would be multiple layers of configuration that impact each other aspect of the configuration. And the example I like to talk about here is buying a car, right? If you've gone onto Tesla's website, you pick a color and it automatically pushes down, suppresses interior colors that aren't available for that exterior color you chose. Same would happen with performance modifications to the car or luxury features that you want to add to the car. Each of those things are adding to the complexity of the solution. And configuring a car is just a moderate level of complexity. You can get really complex things where there's tens of thousands of different configuration options within a single solution that you're trying to sell. So if you take that number of configurations and then multiply that by the number of SKUs, you can see that you can quickly grow to a huge amount of complex data that's got to be managed. But that's only two of the three things that we consider when calculating the level of complexity. The third one is around pricing. Does the organization that's using the CPQ have basic pricing, essentially one price per SKU? Or maybe they have basic discounts like they offer 20% off at the holiday time. That would be a basic level of pricing. You can go to the other end of the spectrum where you've got multiple currencies, you've got layers of discounts, you've got configuration dependencies based on pricing. All of these things can add to the complexity. And the more and more of those pricing rules that you layer on top of each other, it just exponentially increases the level of complexity. So if you think about it, when you multiply all those things together, somebody that's got 1,000 SKUs can suddenly have an extremely complex need for a solution to solve that problem.
What do you think, aside from kind of on the consumer side, I can see how the drive towards kind of better selection of products, more customization, drives with growth and complexity. If you think more broadly, kind of more to B2B use cases, what are the tailwinds of complexity? What's kind of fueling this really rapid growth and complexity? And will we be able to handle this stuff?
Yeah, there's a few things that we see that are kind of pushing, like you said, the tailwinds for complexity growing. And we see that growing and increasing in speed for the foreseeable future. We have customers like GE Healthcare, or Thomson Reuters, even Philips, who are dealing with millions of different price points, millions of attributes to manage. And their complexity is already set. Those are people that have been doing it for a long time, and their complexity they know, they recognize. But then we talk to people like, Salesforce, for instance. Salesforce says today that their typical quote is around 60 lines per quote. They expect that number to grow in the next couple of years to 250 lines per quote. And that's Salesforce. And what are they doing? They're adding in bundles and options and all this sort of stuff that increases the number of lines on a quote. The number of lines on a quote obviously is one of those impacting factors with regards to complexity. But then the next tailwind we're seeing is the drive towards bundling of products together. What we were seeing is that people are saying, I can sell a low margin item and sell a high margin service with it. And by doing that bundle together, I'm increasing my overall margins. And the more times you try to bundle a hard good with something else, that adds to the complexity, especially when we're talking about what we call solution selling. And that's combining physical hard goods, that widget on a shelf, professional services to install that widget on a shelf, and then even subscriptions on top of that. And so if you think about an example here would be, maybe it's a television streaming platform where you sell somebody a hard good, right? And then you sell a subscription to that hard good, Hulu or Netflix or Roku. And then you sell a professional services to install that at somebody's home. That combination of different product types becomes quite difficult and quite complex for the CPQ platform to manage.
So let's say I understand now that I'm a high complexity use case. I have to really think through the dimensions, kind of a fencing around it, and whatever kind of a risk factors in terms of complexity running away from me. If I'm trying to manage it, what does success look like? What should be my metrics of measurement? What are the best practices in this area? What do you see in your practice with customers? What are they doing?
So there's a couple of things here that I'd like to touch on. Number one, when you're dealing with the complexity that we're talking about, and you're trying to match, we're talking about quote to cash here. We're not just talking about the quote side of things, but on the cash side of things, where something goes to contract and you manage that through the CLM. The fact that Conga has we call it a single data model, everything runs on itself on the same data model. What that does is it enables somebody that adds a subscription or a service to their quote to automatically add that legal language attached to that offering into the contract. So being able to successfully tie those two things together is something that Conga is quite adept at, and we're able to do that really well for many of our customers. And then what are they looking at as far as what are the success metrics? What are they looking to see as a return on the investment? And there's a couple things that we look at. We've got customers that are reporting that they're seeing increased margins, 27% increased margins, thanks to being able to bundle high margin offerings, such as those professional services I've talked about, with those low margin hard goods. So just the ability to be able to bundle and create complete and accurate configurations and quotes is increasing people's margin. The second thing that we look at is what's the win rate? Are we seeing an increase in win rates on the deals because of our solution? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. And the reason being is, we highlighted that idea about the streaming service and the subscription and all that together. Normally, if you're not using Conga CPQ, that's 3 separate contracts or quotes that need to be approved. You've got one for the hard good, one for a subscription, and one for professional services. With our solution, we send out a single piece of paper with one signature line. And what that means is you're able to respond to the quote request faster. Your salespeople don't have to chase down multiple contracts, multiple pieces of paper as they attempt to close the deal. And at the end of the day, their win rates are going up because they look more responsive and more put together, if you will.
So when you look at kind of a broad spectrum of customers you guys have, what are some of the best practices you've seen out there? What are some of the examples of like really ingenious approaches to this area? How do you people managing high complexity, and where's the innovation going to come from in this area, do you think, in disruption?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about the current customers and what they're doing and who's really successful, the names I mentioned before all fit that criteria. We have a very popular medical technology company that has millions of different price attributes and line items within their CPQ platform. And being able to manage that within CPQ is something they couldn't do outside of the Conga CPQ application. We are able to break down the barriers of complexity in ways that other people have not been able to. And then what do we look for, or what are we looking at as possible disruption and innovation that's coming down the road in the quote to cash space? It's probably, easy to say that, AI and that augmented reality and being able to look at products in 3D,
Right.
And pricing guidance and all that sort of machine learning, that's likely where the most disruption and innovation is going to be coming from.
Okay. So just to follow up on this last question, do you have a prediction for 2021? Anything that you think it's interesting what's going to happen in this space specifically, or even more broadly? Feel free.
Sure. I think that the number one thing, the momentum's already there, so we just expect it to continue to exponentially grow, is the level of complexity that quotes are of the quotes that are being generated, not just within our system, but across the board in the industry. It's just the way the winds are going. We really have seen that trend take hold, and we expect it to continue to accelerate.
Great. Is there one aspect of Conga that every C-level, every senior business, finance, technology person should know about but don't? What's your what's the biggest secret of Conga?
The biggest secret of Conga. Actually, I think what I would like any C-suite decision maker to look at is to look at our the analysts, how they cover Conga. We are seen favorably by Gartner and Thompson and IDC and Nucleus and IDC Forrester. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting names. Many analysts cover our space, and they all put us up there in the leadership position. The only people in the leadership position are either people that have CRM and ERP audiences and they attach CPQ to it, and then us, who we lead with CPQ and CLM, and that makes us unique in the industry.
Adam, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your expertise in this area. And I'd like to have a great remainder of Monetize Forum 2021. And I would encourage everybody to go visit the Conga booth in the exhibits area and continue networking. Thank you very much, Adam.
Awesome. Thank you.